Very good. My name's Tim. I'm an alcoholic. Sorry about the rough reading, but I do quite like that one. I'll come to some of the detail in it. So I'm an alcoholic. What else is true? There was a phrase in there, if you need and want it badly, I think it said. And by the way, if anything I say is helpful, well, splendid. And if it's not, I wouldn't worry about it, because there are lots of people in AA. If you're new in AA, I don't represent AA, but AA is very pleased about that. So, as I say, if it's helpful, wonderful. If not, don't worry. I needed some help of some description very, very badly. I first stopped drinking when I was 18. Then it would have been called a nervous breakdown, but you never hear that phrase. If you're over 40, you'll remember that. If you're under 40, you'll never have heard anyone say, I've just had a nervous breakdown, because I think we seem to drug people before they get to that stage these days. Probably the truth of it. Or it's called something else, I don't know. But anyway, I had a nervous breakdown. It was very traumatic, and it was very clear that alcohol was the culprit. I mean, I do hear people sometimes saying that, I didn't know it was the alcohol. How could you not know? I mean, when you wake up with a hangover, you know it's a hangover. You know it's to do with the amount you drank the night before. I mean, there's no doubt there. The throwing up. That I heard someone say a few weeks ago, they talked about lying on their back, on their bed at 1 o'clock in the morning with 1 foot on the floor to stop the room spinning. I thought, I haven't thought of that for years. I used to do that. It was annoying that you have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock. You've had an absolute skinful of the stuff. And you desperately need to go to sleep. And every time you close your eyes, you're going to vomit. So you have to open your eyes again and just wait for the room stops spinning. And the foot on the floor helped. I don't know why it did, but it did. And there are things about drinking that if you've drunk a lot, you'll just get. So I was in a very bad state by the age of 18. I recognised it was alcohol. I thought, I'm going to lay off it. And then I managed to stay off for 2 or 3 months. Now, one of the things about alcoholism is it seems to be progressive, which means it gets worse over time. And my ability to even stop for a few days was gradually impaired over the years, such that by the end, I would make a very sincere resolution to stop forever, and it wouldn't be 3 months before I would start again. It would be 10 days, and then it would be 4 days, and then it would be 1 day, and then it would be later that day. I remember when I first read material in the big book about drinking against one's will, I thought, well, I don't understand that. But whenever I had a drink, it always seemed like a terribly good idea at the time. The first drink seemed like a terribly good idea. Every subsequent drink thought, I want to do this, so I will do it. That doesn't feel like it's against my will. The test is not how it feels in the moment. The test is, did I drink how much I planned? And afterwards, did I regret how much I drank? I never woke up in the morning wishing I'd drunk more the night before. I always woke up wishing I'd drunk less, that I hadn't done the things that I'd done, that I hadn't spent the money that I'd spent, that I hadn't upset the people I'd upset. That is the sign that I'm acting under compulsion, not in accordance with my will. Because when I have my dinner at night, I don't wake up the next morning regretting my dinner. Why? Because I don't have an eating disorder, so I eat appropriately and in accordance with my wishes. I never wake up in the morning wishing I hadn't gone to work the day before. It's that regret the next day that shows me there is something wrong with it. And even when my drinking was really very miserable, and I would have a few drinks and it wouldn't do the trick. I wouldn't get the click where everything was okay. And I knew if I carry on drinking under these conditions, it's only going to get darker tonight. The best thing to do is cut my losses and just go to bed. But I absolutely couldn't. So I would carry on drinking on an occasion, knowing that I was going further and further down a dark path, that I'd start roving and rambling and wandering around the city and getting into fights and getting into trouble. Knowing that would happen, I would still do it. That's not acting in accordance with my will. That's yielding to a compulsion which is beyond my control. And the two elements of step one are, number one, when I drink, I can't control the amount that I drink. Number two, when I've got a damn good reason for stopping and a sequence of nervous breakdowns, the gradual compromise of everything good in my life, the gradual destruction of everything good in my life. Those were pretty good reasons to stop altogether, and yet I would start again. And it's those two things which condemned me to go round the merry-go-round for years. My last drink was on the 24th of July 1993. That was after trying for years to stop on my own outside AA with AA's help. Just going to AA, if you're just going to AA and just going to meetings and chatting to your little friends and you're staying sober and everything is fine, good luck to you. I'm very glad for you, I really am. I don't mean that churnishly. I really do wish you well. But I tried that and it didn't work. I tried just doing that and I kept getting drunk again. And people said, you might be one of the people that needs to do literally everything that we're saying, and then you might just about scrape through. Don't worry about the promises. Don't worry about getting a big life or other things that people talk about in AA. If your only purpose is to stay sober and you do everything you're told, you might be okay. And I started to do that and I was okay. So I knew what they were saying was therefore true. And it only kicked in when I said, I don't care what happens for the rest of my life. I don't care if I'm ever happy. I don't care if I ever have a job. I don't care if I ever have a stable place to live. As long as I don't ever have alcohol again and I have the dignity of not being arrested at 12 o'clock on Ladbroke Grove, on the street, face down. As long as I have the dignity of that not happening again, fine, deal. And as soon as I stopped making demands of sobriety, other than sobriety, I was all right. It started to, I relaxed into it. So what did I have to do to, I was going to say get sober. Getting sober is, I had the evidence for years before I actually got sober that I ought to get sober. So evidence won't do it. If evidence was enough, I'd be 38 years sober or something like that. But evidence is not enough. There was a window of opportunity where I seemed to be gotten sober despite myself. And the job in AA was to do something about it, now that the universe had gotten me sober, to do something about it so that I would stay sober. So I would not resume drinking one day at a time. So what did I have to do? Well, the steps are the obvious thing. To do the steps, one needs a sponsor, which is simply someone to show you how to do the steps and to stare at you beadily until you tell the truth about things. Someone who you know will see through any lies or deceptions or distortions or inconsistencies in the story, who's heard it all before, so they'll know exactly what you're hiding. That's very useful to have in a sponsor. It's nice if you're the sort of person who can be totally honest straight off the bat. Marvellous. I'm not. I need the coat's coming off. I need the truth wheedled out of me with skill. It doesn't come out willingly. It doesn't come out. I will cooperate with the process, but it needs someone to help. And that's what a sponsor was there for. And also a sponsor, it was more than one person. I had a formal sponsor, and then there were other people who frankly, technically were sponsoring me. Not in name, but in practice. What does that mean? They suggested that I do things and then I did them. That's one aspect. And I didn't say, but I don't understand it, or I don't like it, or I don't think that's going to work, or why do I have to do... No, I just did it. And that's a really helpful skill to acquire very early in AA. When someone suggests you do something, you say, thank you very much. And then you don't say, I'm going to do it, and manipulate them into thinking you're a marvellous person because you just promised to do something. You quietly just go and do it. And when you've done it, you come back and you say, I've done it. Not I'm going to do it, but I've done it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if I was given by a sponsor a different way of looking at things, I just said, okay, I'll look at it like that as well. Rather than me assessing whether or not I thought what they'd said was sensible and wise. No, I've already made the choice. This is someone I trust. Now, I think for me, AA is very much monkey see, monkey do. But you've got to be frightfully careful about the monkey that you choose to imitate. So I would watch people in AA. Who has what I want? Who seems to be coping with life in a way, I think I like some of that. And at one of the meetings I went to, it was like in grayscale. So no one seemed to have any colour to them in their clothes, in their faces, in their voice. All the voices are just flat. And I fitted in perfectly well here. But there was one person who was bright and breezy and bubbling, didn't give a shit what anyone thought about him. But they thought he was just weird because he was happy. Like, what's wrong with you? How could you possibly be an alcoholic if you're that happy? But I thought I'd rather be him than them. I'd rather be able to cope with life, not just cope with life, actually thrive, have a good time, get on with it. I'd like some of that. And I started to adopt what he suggested. So I would say things like, I'm really depressed. And he said, oh, you're depressed because your life is depressing. If I had your life, I'd be depressed too. The way you think, the way you look at things, depressing. How about you start to look at things like this? You've got God on your side. Now, obviously, you've got God on your side because you're an alcoholic who's sober. Now, if God is on your side, imagine what else God can do for you. Try bringing God into these other areas. And I did it and it worked. And so I don't have to test out the ideas that people pump in my direction by thinking about them. I get to apply them. And if I apply them and they work, then I know that afterwards that what they said was true. And the big idea which people presented me with through the steps, which worked, was not to trust my own assessment, not to trust my own gloom, my own cynicism, my own anxious thoughts, my own depressing thoughts, my own depressed thoughts, not to trust all the bullshit I've been taught by society and my parents and all the people I grew up with. Just throw that whole stuff out. Take some new basic ideas. Ask God what to do. Trust what God says. Run it past an adult if it sounds weird in some way. You know, if God tells me to go to work and work when I'm at work and be nice to my mother, then that's probably God's will. If it's to go and live in Venezuela, maybe check it with an adult first. But to live life not by the rules of the world, but by the rules of the program. I heard years ago a rabbi saying about the 10 Commandments. He said, yeah, people don't like the idea of the 10 Commandments. They don't like being told what to do. They'd rather have the 10 suggestions. Now, sometimes people say, no, well, the program is just suggested. But what it says on page 59, where it says, here is a program of recovery which we suggest to you, which means they're offering it to you. They're not forcing anyone to do it. But it doesn't mean that the steps are optional if one wants to get the promises. And that was the thing I needed to do. So no one's going to force me. It's just like, when you go to France, the menu always says, the chef suggests. That it doesn't mean that there's anything, you have to have what's on the menu if you're going to eat anything at all. It just means they're not going to force you to eat at the restaurant. AA doesn't force me to do the steps, but if I say, well, have you got anything else? The answer is no. You can stay, you can have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, come for fellowship, let's have a chat, but we literally have nothing else. We wish we did, but we don't. There's just the steps. But the thing is, the steps, there's nothing sort of really awful about them, because what their purpose is to sort out my relationship with God by getting all the accumulated bullshit from the past cleared out, so that I'm placed in a position where you give me the option, rather than running around following the world's rules, all you have to do is ask God what to do and get on with it, which is real freedom. But you need to get your own stuff cleared out of the way. And I thought I was bothered by the past. And there were lots of bothering things. There were lots of bothersome things. There were some bothersome things in my childhood, and that's to put it mildly. But I was never bothered, I learnt in the steps, by the past. I was bothered by what I was currently thinking about the past, about how I was looking at the past from the present. The problem is not the past. If the problem's in the past, you're fucked because you can't change the past. If the problem is in my mind now, what I'm now doing when I think about the past, the problem is next to the solution. I can do something about it because I'm right there while it's happening. And what I was taught to do was to look at each of those situations differently. I was taught how to go back to all the people I'd effed over and say, you know what, the things that I did I shouldn't have done, here's the money back. I wasn't paying them my money, I was paying them their money. This is how I got free. Number one, forgive all of them. Not because what they did was excusable. A lot of things were excusable. A lot of things were actually fine. They were just doing their job and I was the arsehole. Some things, people did bad things, but they were excusable. Sometimes people did inexcusable things, and that's what forgiveness is for. It's for the inexcusable things. I couldn't get let off the hook myself for the inexcusable things I did, of which there were many. I didn't really think other people were real, and that will cause you to do inexcusable things on a regular basis. Thought I was the only part, I was sensitive. No one else was. I had feelings, you were just in the way. When I made amends to those people and when I forgave, I was let off the hook, but it needed both. Also profoundly connected, the reason why I was blaming so many people for so many things was because I hadn't made amends over there. I felt guilty about that. So to get rid of the guilt, I found other people responsible for my life. And one of the big lessons, which was such a relief and also solved so much confusion, I come from what they call an alcoholic family. So there are alcoholics and addicts and these and those and all of the untreated Al-Anons, and very complicated, very busy, everyone in each other's business. What I learnt was that I am responsible for my beliefs, my thinking, my behaviour, my feelings, my experience, my life, everything going on in my life. You're responsible for yours. I'm not responsible for you. You're not responsible for me, but I am responsible for how I behave towards you. And that establishment of a basic boundary with the world where I'm responsible for what's inside my hula hoop, number one, it keeps me safe. Number two, it keeps me out of everyone else's business, which frees up the whole afternoon. And what does my life look like today? Well, I was going to say I have an occupation. I suppose I don't really. I think my higher power is who I work for, and my higher power says, check your email in the morning, and if people have asked you to do things, you do the things, and then, as if by magic, at the end of the month, some money's going to come into your bank account. And it does. I suppose it looks like I've got a job, but I haven't. I work for the higher power. If working for people is a nightmare, working for God is fine. He's a very good employer. All I have to do each day is do the tasks of the day and I'm done. My life really is as simple as that. If I make it more complicated than that, I go really mad really quickly because I come from a very broken past and I'm never going to be quite like regular people. But what AA does, it gives me a way of operating in the world which works really, really well. I'm married, I've been with someone for 20 years, and we're extremely happy, and we don't argue because we don't like it. We find another way. I looked after my mother until she died. What else? I've got my own place I live in, which is perfectly nice. It satisfies everything that I need. All of that is because of AA, but all of that is not because AA did it for me. It's because I did what AA suggested. And boy, have I been paid back. And the other thing, I'm going to finish on this, promise. When people say, will you sponsor me, we have a conversation and we talk, and either I'm suitable or I'm not, and it means that I've sponsored a lot of people over the years. I don't know why, because they asked. I don't get them to ask me, they just ask. And I've seen this happen with all my friends as well who adopt the programme. And this is the thing, all the things that I need to hear myself, I will hear, but someone comes to me, asks me for help. They say, what should I do? And I think of something, and then I think, that's really good advice for me. So all the things I get to say to other people in sponsorship, I don't know if it's useful to them, but it's useful to me. And that's how this thing seems to work. That's all I've got. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Tim.